You didn't buy a status symbol. You willingly walked into a meticulously coded trap designed to bleed you dry. But there is a hidden loophole the elite use to drive luxury machines absolutely free. Watch until the end, because this single financial hack will permanently shatter your reality. I'm going to expose a lie that has cost you thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is a psychological trap engineered by the smartest billionaires on this planet, designed so perfectly that you will willingly hand over the keys to your financial freedom with a vacant smile on your face. You think you are buying status. You think you are buying the future. But in reality, you are purchasing a flawlessly coded illusion that keeps you broke, exhausted, and hopelessly trapped in a matrix you cannot even see. Before we pull back the heavy curtain and show you exactly how to beat them at their own dangerous game, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel, giving us the vital fuel we need to keep exposing the financial truths they do not want you to hear. Money Glow Up 02 warmly welcomes you to the awakening. I can still feel the cold, synthetic glow of my laptop screen illuminating the pitch-black room. It was 11:30 p.m. on a suffocatingly quiet Tuesday. My brain had been completely hijacked, drowning in a toxic, late-night cocktail of sheer exhaustion and a desperate, gnawing craving for dopamine. There I was, staring numbly into the digital abyss of the Tesla website. You know the exact page I'm talking about. The impossibly sleek lines, the sterile, minimalist interior, the unspoken promise engineered into every pixel that if you just sit in this driver's seat, your life will finally mean something. And right there, staring back at me with predatory patience, was a button. It did not warn me that I was about to sign away half a decade of my financial life. It simply whispered, "Order now, $250 due today." It was terrifyingly frictionless. There was no sleazy car salesman in a cheap, ill-fitting suit trying to pressure me into a corner. There was no agonizing haggling in a fluorescent-lit back office reeking of stale coffee and desperation. No, the modern trap is far more elegant and infinitely more lethal. I merely double-clicked the side button on my iPhone. The Face ID quickly scanned my tired, glassy eyes in the dark, the Apple Pay chimed its cheerful little note of approval, and just like that, the deed was done. I had just acquired a massive, rapidly depreciating luxury liability with the exact same emotional gravity and blind speed as ordering a cheap pack of paper towels on Amazon. For about 10 beautiful minutes, the psychological rush was absolute intoxication. I felt invincible, like a modern-day Tony Stark who had finally arrived at the pinnacle of success. But then, the heavy silence of the living room crept back in. The adrenaline violently crashed out of my system, and the cold, unforgiving reality of the mathematics slammed into my chest like a physical weight. What had I just done? I had willingly surrendered to the ultimate modern disease, the fear of missing out. I ask you to be brutally, uncomfortably honest with yourself right now. Several years ago, Elon Musk stood under the dazzling stage lights and promised humanity a $35,000 electric car for the working masses. It was supposed to be a total revolution. But search your memory, search your entire social circle, and tell me, when was the last time a single human being actually drove off that delivery lot holding the sleek black key card to a Tesla for exactly $35,000? Never. It is a ghost. It does not exist. Now, if you tune in to the traditional financial gurus shouting through the angry static of your radio, they will call you a complete, irredeemable fool for even dreaming of looking at that car. Their grand solution is a life of utter misery. They will fiercely command you to eat nothing but rice and beans, to drive a rusted, soulless 1998 Toyota Corolla with a duct-taped bumper, and to live like an impoverished, joyless monk until you are 65 years old and too tired to enjoy the wealth you endlessly hoarded. I fundamentally abhor that philosophy. That advice is a suffocating relic of a bygone era, and frankly, it is a miserable way to exist. Let me be unequivocally clear. There is absolutely no shame in desiring luxury. There is no sin in wanting to wrap your hands around a beautifully stitched steering wheel, to experience cutting-edge technological marvels, or to simply enjoy the premium comfort you have worked so relentlessly to afford. You have bled for your paycheck. You deeply deserve the fruits of your intense labor. The tragedy is not the burning desire for the luxury item itself. The tragedy is the catastrophic way you have been taught to purchase it. The fatal flaw is operating as a blindly emotional consumer rather than a cold, calculating financial hacker. When you buy a luxury asset at a pure, unadulterated impulse, allowing corporate algorithms and brilliantly disguised marketing tactics to dictate your financial reality, you are not a powerful buyer. You are prey. You are a disposable pawn moving helplessly across a billionaire's digital chessboard. You genuinely believe you are buying a car, but you are actually buying a masterfully crafted illusion of affordability. And starting in this very moment, we are going to violently shatter that illusion together. To shatter this meticulously crafted illusion, we must first look at the invisible chains binding you to that suffocating monthly payment. The morning after my impulsive midnight click, the psychological hangover hit me with the brutal force of a freight train. I opened my banking app and there it was, the sleek silhouette of my pending doom, disguised as a confirmation number. The dominant narrative pushed by society, the one quietly whispered into our ears since we were old enough to watch a television commercial, is that a car payment is simply a normal fact of life. It is the adult tax. You graduate, you get a grueling corporate job, and you reward yourself by signing a densely worded contract that chains you to a depreciating block of steel and lithium for the next 72 months. They normalize this financial slavery so completely that we actually congratulate each other for stepping into the trap. We post pictures on social media, grinning widely next to a car we do not actually own, holding a key that the bank can remotely deactivate the second we miss a payment. But when I sat down at my kitchen table, the cold light of day washing over my scribbled calculations, the actual mathematics of what I had done made my stomach turn. I was not just paying the sticker price of the car, I was bleeding out from 1,000 invisible cuts. There was the staggering interest rate, silently compounding in the background like a financial parasite. There were the inflated insurance premiums, quietly siphoning away my disposable income month after painful month. And then there was the silent, absolute killer, depreciation. The very second the tires of that pristine machine roll off the perfectly manicured dealership asphalt, 10 to 20% of its value evaporates into thin air. You are essentially setting fire to thousands of dollars of your own life energy before you even reach the first traffic light. Yet, the dealership financing departments are master illusionists. They do not want you to look at the total cost. They fiercely redirect your attention away from the gaping wound in your net worth and focus you entirely on one highly manipulated number, the monthly payment. They will stretch out the loan term to 84 or even 96 months just to make that monthly figure comfortably fit into your already strained budget. It is a brilliant, insidious psychological trick. They make the poison taste sweet. You feel empowered because you can technically afford the payment, completely blind to the reality that you are mortgaging your future to finance a rapidly decaying present. I realized, sitting in that quiet kitchen, that I had traded years of my future freedom for a temporary burst of artificial status. Every dollar I was about to pour into that black hole of an automobile was a dollar that could not be invested. It was a dollar that could not compound. It was a soldier in my financial army that I was sending straight into an ambush. The opportunity cost was staggering. If I took that same monthly payment, that same aggressive cash flow, and channeled it into assets that actually generated wealth, the trajectory of my entire bloodline would change. Instead, I was making a billionaire even richer, while quietly accepting my place in the struggling middle class. The anger I felt in that moment was not directed at Elon Musk or the dealership. It was directed squarely at myself. I had been playing the game by their rules, and their rules are mathematically designed to ensure that you lose. The wealthy do not finance depreciating liabilities with their hard-earned active income. They do not trade their precious hours on this earth for an object that violently loses value the moment they touch it. They understand a fundamental secret about money that the middle class is desperately trying to ignore. I knew I could not simply cancel the order and go back to driving a miserable, crumbling beater car. My desire for the luxury experience was still fiercely alive. I did not want to lower my standard of living. I wanted to elevate my financial intelligence. I needed a loophole, a structural flaw in the matrix that would allow me to possess the masterpiece without becoming a victim of its mathematics. Realizing that I was actively bleeding out financially was terrifying, but that pure terror was exactly what pushed me to fundamentally rewire my entire understanding of money. The true division between the hopelessly broke and the genuinely wealthy is not the size of their salary, but the architecture of their mindset. I spent weeks obsessively consuming the financial strategies of the elite, tearing through balance sheets and investment philosophies, trying to decode how the rich drove six-figure exotic machines without ever feeling the sting of depreciation. The revelation, when it finally pierced through my conditioned thinking, was so elegantly simple that it felt like a physical blow. The poor and middle class buy liabilities directly with their active income. They work a grueling 40 hours a week, they pay exorbitant taxes on their sweat, and they hand whatever pathetic scraps are left directly over to a car dealership. The wealthy, however, operate in a completely different dimension of reality. They refuse to buy liabilities with their own money. Instead, they buy assets. They acquire real estate, dividend-paying equities, or scalable businesses. These assets act as tireless, uncomplaining financial engines that work 24 hours a day, generating a steady, predictable stream of passive cash flow. And then, in a move of absolute financial brilliance, they use that passive cash flow to pay for their luxury liabilities. The asset pays for the toy. The golden goose buys the Tesla, and the wealthy individual gets to keep the goose. This paradigm shift felt like waking up from a lifelong coma. I was looking at my impulsive car order completely wrong. The problem was not the vehicle itself. The problem was my pathetic, linear approach to acquiring it. I was about to use the absolute worst kind of money, highly taxed, hard-earned W-2 income, to finance a depreciating rock. If I wanted to play the game like a predator rather than a disposable pawn, I had to completely restructure the transaction. I needed an asset to absorb the blow. I needed to build a financial shield between myself and the liability. I began to view the car not as a consumer good, but as a strategic chess piece. I asked myself a question that the traditional financial gurus would consider absolute heresy. How can I force this liability to behave like an asset? How can I weaponize this machine to generate income, effectively neutralizing its own monthly cost? The answers began to flood in, revealing a shadowy underworld of wealth-building tactics that the masses simply ignore. I discovered the immense power of the tax code, a beautifully complex rulebook written by the rich, for the rich. While the middle class sees taxes as an unavoidable punishment, the wealthy view the tax code as a treasure map. If structured correctly, a vehicle is not just a mode of transportation, it is a massive, highly efficient tax write-off. By shifting the purchase from my personal name into the protective umbrella of a corporate entity, the entire financial landscape transformed. The depreciation, which was previously a silent killer eroding my net worth, suddenly became my greatest ally. Through the magic of Section 179 and bonus depreciation, the phantom loss in the vehicle's value could be aggressively leveraged to wipe out my legitimate taxable income. The government, in its bizarre and beautiful logic, would essentially subsidize the purchase of my luxury car, returning thousands of dollars to my pocket simply because I had the intellectual courage to file the correct paperwork. But I could not stop at mere tax mitigation. That was only playing defense. To truly master the game, I had to go on the offensive. I needed the machine to actively print money. I dove into the exploding world of peer-to-peer car sharing, realizing that there were thousands of people desperate to taste the exact same dopamine rush I had experienced on that Tesla website. They were willing to pay premium daily rates just to temporarily hold the illusion of wealth. By strategically deploying the vehicle onto these platforms during the days I was confined to my home office, I transformed a dormant piece of metal sitting in a dark garage into an aggressive, revenue-generating employee. Once you deeply understand that wealth is a game of strategic positioning rather than brute force saving, the path to owning that luxury machine becomes astonishingly clear. The execution of this strategy requires cold, calculated discipline, tearing away the emotional desperation that drives normal consumer behavior. I did not blindly accept the dealership's predatory financing terms. Instead, I walked into that aggressively lit showroom armed with the devastating power of pre-approved, low-interest leverage from a local credit union. I had effectively decoupled myself from their psychological games. When the finance manager, a slick man with a practiced, condescending smile, tried to push the extended warranties and the inflated interest rates, I simply slid my own paperwork across the glass desk. The color drained from his face as he realized he was not dealing with an emotional mark, but a financial hacker who had already rigged the board. The true magic, however, began the moment the sleek black keycard was finally in my hand. I did not drive it home and park it as a trophy of my vanity. I immediately initiated the blueprint. The vehicle was registered under my newly formed limited liability company. It was no longer a personal indulgence, it was a commercial fleet of one. By meticulously documenting its business use, I legally captured a massive depreciation shield that drastically reduced my tax burden for that fiscal year. The money I saved in taxes alone covered the first 8 months of the loan payments. It felt as though I had legally robbed a bank. But the offensive strategy is where the true financial alchemy occurred. I took high-quality, perfectly lit photographs of the sterile, minimalist interior and the aggressive exterior lines. I crafted a compelling, psychologically optimized listing on Turo, targeting the exact demographic of dopamine-starved dreamers I had been just weeks prior. I priced it strategically, undercutting the major rental corporations while maintaining a premium aura. Within 48 hours, the bookings began to violently cascade into my phone. a traveling executive needing a statement car for a weekend conference, a young couple celebrating an anniversary, desperate for the perfect Instagram aesthetic. I was no longer the consumer. I had become the dealer. I was selling the illusion to others, and they were happily paying my monthly note. Every time the car rolled out of my driveway with a stranger behind the wheel, my phone buzzed with a direct deposit that completely neutralized the sting of the bank loan. In the first 30 days, the vehicle generated enough gross revenue to cover its own payment, its inflated insurance premium, and still left a modest surplus of pure, unadulterated cash flow. The liability had effectively eaten itself. It was not entirely passive, of course. There were moments of sheer anxiety, deep late-night cleanings, and the frustrating logistics of managing strangers. But the psychological victory was absolute. I was driving a brand-new, cutting-edge technological marvel, and it was costing me absolutely nothing out of my own earned income. In fact, on paper, it was making me wealthier. I had completely bypassed the miserable, joyless existence advocated by the traditional financial gurus. I did not have to eat rice and beans. I did not have to suffer in a rusted, duct-taped Toyota Corolla. I had hacked the system, forcing the very mechanisms of capitalism that usually enslave the middle class to actively work for my benefit. I took the surplus cash flow generated by the vehicle and ruthlessly redirected it into high-yield dividend funds. I was building a second layer of defense. The car was funding the portfolio, and eventually, the portfolio's dividends would grow large enough to fund the next luxury acquisition. It was a self-sustaining ecosystem of wealth. I had successfully insulated my active labor from my consumption desires. When I finally sat in the driver's seat for my own personal use, feeling the silent, violent acceleration press me back into the meticulously stitched leather, there was no guilt. There was no crushing weight of buyer's remorse. There was only the intoxicating thrill of absolute victory over a system designed to keep me poor. Watching that first payment clear from an account I did not even have to actively fund was the exact moment the matrix permanently dissolved. The air in my living room feels different now. It is no longer heavy with the quiet, desperate anxiety of a man living paycheck to paycheck, trapped beneath the crushing weight of his own impulsive desires. That cold, synthetic glow of the laptop screen no longer represents a dangerous abyss of financial ruin. It is now my command center, the digital dashboard from which I manipulate assets, leverage debt, and orchestrate my own financial sovereignty. The vehicle sitting quietly in my driveway is not a testament to my ego. It is a monument to my financial literacy. It is a daily, physical reminder that the rules of the game can be bent, broken, and rewritten if you possess the sheer audacity to stop thinking like a victim. Society desperately wants you to remain asleep. The billionaires who code the flawless checkout pages, the banking executives who architect the 72-month loans, and the politicians who draft the tax codes, they all rely on your blind, emotional consumption to maintain their empires. They need you to crave the status symbol so deeply that you willingly trade your future freedom for a fleeting moment of modern luxury. They want you exhausted, indebted, and totally dependent on your next paycheck. Because a financially independent human being is the most dangerous, uncontrollable force on the planet. But you now hold the blueprint. You understand that true wealth is not about what you drive. It is profoundly about how you finance what you drive. You no longer have to choose between the miserable austerity of the extreme penny pinchers and the catastrophic financial bleeding of the impulsive consumer. There is a third way, the way of the wealth hacker. You can have the beautifully stitched leather, the impossibly sleek lines, and the cutting-edge technology, but you must demand that your assets pay the toll. You must fiercely protect your active income, building impenetrable walls of passive cash flow between your labor and your lifestyle. Do not let this realization simply fade away as you scroll to the next video. Let this be the precise moment you stop operating as disposable prey on their digital chessboard. Refuse to be a casualty of the invisible bleed. Build your business entity, learn the tax code, and weaponize your liabilities. Transform your desires from chains into engines. When you finally grasp the keys to your dream machine, make absolutely certain that the money used to purchase it was generated while you were sleeping. This is not just about a car. This is about reclaiming your dignity, your time, and your absolute right to experience the finest things in this world without surrendering your soul to a bank. You have bled enough for your paycheck. It is time to let your assets do the bleeding. Stay sharp, stay calculating, and never, ever buy the illusion at retail price. Money Glow Up 02 is incredibly proud to watch you step out of the matrix and into your true financial power. Until next time, build the asset, protect your freedom, and keep glowing up. The journey from financial slavery to absolute sovereignty fundamentally relies on destroying the traditional narrative of modern consumerism. For generations, the middle class has been conditioned to trade their highly taxed active labor for rapidly depreciating liabilities, quietly bleeding out through hidden interest rates, inflated insurance premiums, and massive depreciation. However, the true secret of the wealthy is not absolute self-deprivation. It is strategic financial architecture. By shifting your mindset from a disposable consumer to a strategic wealth hacker, you can completely neutralize the financial drain of your luxury desires. The blueprint is ruthlessly effective. Never finance a liability with your own W-2 income. Instead, build a protective shield by establishing a business entity, leveraging the tax code to transform phantom depreciation into a massive tax write-off, and monetizing the vehicle through peer-to-peer sharing platforms to cover its own monthly expenses. The ultimate goal is to construct a self-sustaining ecosystem where passive cash flow and cash-flowing assets pay for your lifestyle, permanently insulating your hard-earned active income from the predatory traps of modern retail capitalism. You do not have to abandon your desires for a high-quality life, nor do you have to wait until retirement to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You simply must refuse to pay the retail price with your life energy, aggressively forcing the mechanics of wealth and leverage to work for you rather than against you. True wealth is not defined by the absolute denial of pleasure, but by the complete mastery of financial leverage. The rich do not work to buy their toys. They build systems and assets that buy the toys for them. A liability only drains your net worth if you purchase it as a consumer. If you change the legal and financial structure of the transaction, almost any liability can be re-engineered into a wealth-generating tool. You are only a victim of the matrix if you choose to play by the rules designed for the working class. Stop using your primary paycheck to fund your lifestyle upgrades. Before you make your next significant purchase, whether it is a car, a high-end electronic device, or a luxury vacation, pause and build a financial bridge. First, acquire or build a cash-flowing asset, such as a dividend portfolio, a small side business, or a digital product. Once that asset generates enough passive income to cover the monthly cost of your desired liability, only then do you make the purchase. Begin educating yourself immediately on basic tax structures, LLCs, and legally allowable business deductions. Shift your identity today from an emotional retail buyer to a strategic investor, ensuring your money always acts as a tool for expansion rather than an anchor of debt. To help us all grow and learn from each other, please take a moment to answer this simple question in the comment section below. If you could transform one liability you currently own, like a car, a spare room, or even camera equipment, into an income-generating asset today, what would it be, and how would you do it? We would love to read your perspective so the entire community can share and discover new ideas. If you found value in this blueprint and want to continue mastering your financial independence, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel. Your support gives us the immense motivation needed to keep producing high-quality, life-changing content for you. Stay sharp and keep glowing up.